that US market has an affinity towards Indian talent due to various reasons. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Updesh, a series that we've created for the Indian diaspora, where the Indian diaspora helps the NRIs and other small scale startups as well as bootstrap companies who are navigating through the tricky waters of hiring. The entire intent of doing this is to build conversation and give resources readily to people who are looking to build their hiring funnel without failing through it miserably. There are so many Indians, NRIs, and these Indian diaspora who are out there conquering these challenges, and they speaking it out of their experience does help a lot. Previously, we've got CXOs, CEOs, and other such people who have given you such valuable information. Today, we have Shreya Mahindra, and she has been a digital nomad for quite some time now. And today we would like her to speak a little bit about herself before we begin the session. Hello again. I am Anvesha, your host of Updesh. Yes, Shreya.
Thanks, Anvesha. Thanks for the lovely introduction. Yes, so currently I'm working as the director of product at Steer Health, which is a US-based B2B health tech company. And to give some more context about my background and my past experience, I have been working with a lot of tech companies itself, and they have been mostly outside of India. So I worked with European companies, I've worked with US, Australian, and other Asian companies as well. And in the later part of my professional journey, I've also been a digital nomad, which means I can work from anywhere. So most of my work has been remote. And yes, that's a little bit about me, and a lot about also tech for good that I'm mostly interested in. So I've been into the health tech and ed tech spaces specifically. So yes, that's my interest area.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's so wonderful to hear. So, in Updesh, we usually discuss the hiring challenges or the hiring problems and how these product SaaS companies are navigating through that. In Updesh, we try to talk about SaaS and product based companies, their hiring challenges and how they've scaled their companies. We've had CTOs, CXOs talk about how to build hiring funnel, and we've had other people talk about the culture. We've had people talk about different aspects of startup hiring, which is quintessential because startup environment itself is a very volatile and a dynamic environment because you're doing too many things at the same time and you're scantily resourced. It's not a big setup which is very organized, and there are systems and processes and teams in place. It's building all at the same time. Like in another podcast of ours, Sean mentioned to us saying that it's exactly like flying a plane while building it. So
True and truly,
it's quite
rightly
quite
said.
yeah, because in a startup you're building everything on the go while you are running the entire show. So that those interesting points make it all the more necessary that you get information which is easy to acquire, easy to understand, and it's available free. Because during that scaling process or even building process, if you do not have the information that you need as a startup owner or as a business, as a budding entrepreneur, it becomes very difficult for you to succeed. Because we've seen the studies show that 54% of startups which are bootstrapped fail in the first 3 years of tenure. And uh, that makes it way more difficult because you are investing so much time. If you can have something sorted, which is easy, I feel hiring somewhere plays a very important role, specifically when you are hiring from India. Because people, as we've talked to so many people, they always come up and say that hiring from India itself is a very overwhelming experience. Um, That brings me to, have you ever, when you were working in these startups, have you ever been part of actively hiring or building or scaling teams, specifically hiring from India?
Yes, Anvesh, I think very rightly said. That's how startups are, and it can be very challenging to have the right talent fit in. And I think after the hiring process, also there's a whole journey of onboarding and then making sure that new employee is performing as it that person was perhaps expected to. So that way, yes, I fully agree that there are so many experience we've had great success stories also, and we've had some terrible failures as well. And I think a big mistake that we as employers or as hiring managers sometimes do is that we don't set the right expectations. We are not able to visualize how will it look like. So let's say if I want to hire maybe a project manager, right? And I know that this is the gap that I want to fill, and currently this is where I'm struggling. But I should be able to visualize that, okay, if this person comes in, they should be able to fit into this, work culture as well, be able to, be helpful to the other team members as well. And if they are successful, these processes will be aligned and this will look good. So if I'm able to visualize that success a story of that certain employee, I think then hiring becomes way easier. And those are the mistakes that we've done in the past as well. So we used to think, okay, we by the title we used to think, okay, we need this person, but then we did not realize that we needed to know more about how that role will be justified, and how the KPIs of that role will look like. So I think it might sound boring that we have to set the KPIs, measure all of that, but I think it's very essential. And you're doing injustice to the candidates and employees as well if you're hiring them and then not placing them for success. I think it's a bad job as an employer. So that is my take on the experiences so far.
I see. I see. Yeah, true, true. Because I feel somewhere skill mapping makes it much more easier for you to have a roadmap for a talent, and specifically when you're looking to take up a talent from an offshore location, it becomes very difficult
Yes.
to have that faith, and you invest so much. There is man hours, there is experience, there is training. There is a lot of sifting through a lot of things, which usually brings you to building a good team and building your own hiring funnel that way. So I feel somewhere it is true that that is needed, having a proper plan, a roadmap, or thought process behind recruitment or hiring itself. Having said that, as I was saying, there is statistics where 20% of new businesses fail in the first 2 years, 45 in the first five, and 65 in the first 10 years. And only 25% of new businesses survive for 15 years or more. And this arc for startups becomes very hard. Like you said, you did not have a planning, or you did not plan a KPI in the beginning. So, what has been your process in a startup while building a hiring funnel, specifically when you are hiring from India?
Right. I think hiring slow is important. I think not rushing when you identify that you need a certain position to be filled. Be very sure that you actually want that position to be filled. That's one. I think wait and see if internally it can be filled or not, because that will help you save all of the resources of hiring and then training and onboarding and then expecting that person to perform. So that is, I think, that is number one. And then second, once you're super sure that there is an opening and you need somebody to fill it in, then first set some visual of success, what the success will look like. And once you understand that too, once you understand, okay, this person will perform in the first 3 months, we want this from the new employee, in the next 3 months we want this from the new employee, then you're able to, when you're interviewing or when you get to the further stages, you're able to see that person fitting into those responsibilities, and performing all of those, giving their best on those expectations as well. And I think then the third one is a big one, which is a culture fit also. So if most of your team is offshore, I think then still things are easier. But if you have like a hybrid thing, if, for example, in my company, in my current company, we have a mix where we have some people coming to the office and they are based out of the US, and then there are more people who are working from India itself, and the talent is almost very very distributed across the globe. So I think that makes things more difficult, because the communication style and the way of working, the hours of working, everything becomes really complicated. So I think those things also should be clearly defined. What will be the hours of work, with which team members this person will be working, right? And then you see whether that person will fit into that team well or not. If there are going to be any friction points, and you are, especially in the management positions, I think it becomes a little bit more challenging when the person is not an individual contributor but a manager who has to manage people across different time zones and geographies. I think that's where you need to have a very clear understanding of how this person will be succeeding, and communicate that with the potential candidates as well. So and then finally, I think when you open the applications, when you start getting those applications, then CV is, I think, not enough anymore. We definitely need more tools. Like, we need to see what their previous work has been. We need to see any assignments, if they are able to do those, and also maybe very clearly ask them that this is what we expect from you. How do you think you can deliver this? That can be a question also in the first round itself, and that helps you a lot in sieving through redundant CVs as well, because elimination is the first stage, that we, not shortlisting but elimination, that okay, these are the CVs we don't want. So I think that way it of course continues, but I wanted to focus more on the stages that happen before even the hiring start.
True, true, true. Because as we all know that brand presence is very important when you're hiring in India, because you are offshoring your roles. So if the market is not aware of who you are, it's very difficult to tell them about you or convince people to understand what is your ethos or what the company actually has. Understanding the culture, understanding people, understanding how the entire organization functions. Because when a team is very small, small company of 2 to 10 people, it's, you have to speak to everybody, you have to be in touch with everybody, and coordination and understanding that is very very important. So what do you think, what are the crucial things you should do to create a brand presence when creating a hiring funnel?
I think that is actually, almost, it might seem independent of hiring, but it matters a lot, like you mentioned, because people who are good employees, they will look for a company where they want to spend, a lot of the years ahead, and not for just maybe interim, because then that way you also don't end up getting good talent. So I think branding comes in really important in, it has to be an ongoing thing. It cannot be just bound with the hiring process and that tenure. So it can come in different forms, of course. How the internal team functions, how the team members, they are appreciated, and those success stories of the employees also being shared, maybe on public platforms like LinkedIn, etc., and maybe even on their own websites, companies websites, if you're appreciating and recognizing the team members there. So I think that matters. And then second is what exactly the company does. That has to be very clear. It has to speak very clearly to whom you're going to be end up working with. So is it going to be a B2B company? Is it going to be a B2C company? Is the role going to be, if I join as a manager, do I end up talking to clients, or do I end up talking to my internal team? So how that structure is created within the team and outside the team, that also should be very transparent. And finally, if I were to say, I think good talent gets attracted to the success stories of that company itself. So if we if talent would see that this company has gone from zero to 10 million users in 2 years, so that becomes something very attractive to good talent, because then they will see that and they want to be a part of it, they want to contribute, they want to witness all of that journey. And that way, I think sharing your success stories online is very important. So that is I think around something that is very simple, that you anyway, the company is doing their job, and it's just sharing that online. And then apart from that, if you want to go another step, next step, which can be difficult for some organizations, because you might not have a whole people's team, etc., you might not have that. But still, if you do have, then show some activities that the employees do, and maybe for example, a certain product was a success, then acknowledge that team, acknowledge the work that they did, and acknowledge, maybe any celebrations that you do for the success as well, or any other, extracurricular engagement with the employees as well, that can be shown online and shown to the potential employees for the future. So I think that can be another next step. But something very basic is to at least show what your product does and how successful it has been.
I feel somewhere, as we've discussed before, also product based hiring with other speakers, that product based hiring is very different than service based hiring. The entire intent, the way you are doing it, everything changes because the way you're screening the talent, the way you're looking at the talent, or the traits you're looking for in the talent is quite different. And even people have, thought of always looking through talent from the lens that, okay, if they have a startup experience, let's look for those talents. Like you said previously, it helps if they have a startup experience. And Indian talents have a huge startup experience because India is a startup budding environment and an ecosystem in itself, because it is the second largest startup ecosystem. So, what do you feel is the most critical traits or skills a startup should look up when hiring tech talent from India?
Right. I think, of course, skills and experience, that is something very, very basic. But I feel that where companies struggle is that they will hire based on the skills and experience. But then, if that person ends up not being a good culture fit, that creates a whole different problem. So making sure that they have that, they have that professionalism and they have some experience in that professional environment. I think that also helps. So it might, like, I think it sounds weird that when you're working with different time zones and you have to be responsible with your work. I think that has to come from the employee itself. And considering we come from such a big country where we have a whole spectrum of the type of talents we have, right? We have people who might be charging very less but are really good, and we might be having people that charge a lot but are not professional, and maybe have just a certain handful of skills, but they're unable to map how much they should charge. So there's this whole spectrum, and I think you have to make sure that you go through all of those parameters, especially the culture fit part. And how you could do is that you could do team introductions with that potential employee. Once you get to that stage when you're almost finalizing the candidate, then you can have some team introductions, some team activities, involve them in one or two things, and see how they react, see how they engage with the team, etc. I think that can be a good activity too. But yes, this is like an unspoken thing about culture fit. I feel that people, especially talent, misses out on these things because hiring managers are looking for it. So make sure that you know that.
I see. So, as you were talking, that there needs to be understanding of the culture fit, and employers somewhere need to assess it. Usually, the assessment methods that are used, or the tools that are available in the market, even AI does assessment based on skills, roles, and experiences. So, if you are a developer, they'll give you coding, they'll give you different kinds of situations to manage within that coding environment.
Yep.
So they'll ask you to do a very complex set of things, or they'll give you questions which will enact the product environment or the intricacies the product faces. But culture, how have you assessed culture fit in your previous organizations or in your current organization while you're hiring from India? Being an Indian, there might be an edge, or there might be a familiarity of understanding the applicant.
Yeah.
But how do you check for the culture that this person might just fit into our organization, or would function and align with the goals and the mission and understand the entire ecosystem? How do you do that?
So great question, and you rightly said that the existing methods of screening would usually include just checking the candidate on the hard skills, but those soft skills that are ignored are very important. So the best way to do is that, of course, you test the hard skills, but put a layer of the assessment of soft skills as well. For example, if you're giving out an assignment which is around maybe coding itself, then make it like, okay, you have this much time and your manager is expecting this and the client is expecting this. How would you navigate this and how would you deliver this? I think that whole situation can be improvised a bit to assess how that person would perform in real time in the workplace environment itself. So that, I think, can be a good assignment and good way of checking the culture fit. So when you see that the person is proactive, for example, if they have a tight deadline and they also have something more very complex to get done, of course the way is not to just just say that I cannot do it, or it can be, you go ahead and say, communicate with your team leader, whoever it is, so that communication skills, they come out, they are able to demonstrate that too. So those assignments are extremely important and they can be a part of the hard skill testing itself. So that is what we've done in some of in some of the hiring methods that we've tried, and it has worked because we are able to see how that person will react, how that person will communicate, and even if they are under stress, and they have lesser resources than in the ideal case scenario, then how resourceful will they be in that environment? So these skills are very important: being resourceful, being transparent, sharing updates, and making sure that they are communicating. Even if things are going fine, you still communicate, right? We have been in that setting now for a bit. I think you've also worked at Uploads for a bit now. So that is, I think, these are the things that we sometimes ignore, but as employers, it can get agitating if the employees that we hire, they are great at skills, but they don't even talk properly. They are not even able to convey what they've done or what is pending, etc. So those are the skills that we do check, and we do make sure that it becomes a part of not just the screening but also part of the onboarding, where in the onboarding also we share the vision, we share the mission, we share the expectations, we share examples of how that certain work culture fits in. For example, if we say that, hey, we are a very resourceful team, then we give examples. How were we resourceful? This was the team, this is how they did, this was the situation, and they were able to do this. When they hear about these stories, then that helps them understand how they can perform better in their role that they're hired for. So it is, yeah, it is not just from the in the hiring screening itself. I think it is before and after also.
I believe when you share examples of learnings, it makes it understandable, or it makes the person see through it. Because when you narrate, when you say, okay, you are supposed to, you say a rule that you're supposed to A, B, C, you're supposed to submit your work by 10 a.m. in the morning, it becomes a hard and fast rule. But when you talk about situations, it is easier for the person to gauge, okay, this is the priority, or this is the way you need to manage things, or this is how it functions, or this is how you function within this organization. And I think somewhere this needs to happen during your interviewing or the assessment or the screening stage itself. Because once you've reached onboarding, that's when you have decided upon it, you're locking it, and it's difficult to do a proper culling out at that point of time. So that brings me to another very interesting point, that since you've worked in Domino's and other renowned organizations, you worked with 60 plus startups and global companies. So, how do you apply global best practices when scaling startups with Indian talent?
Specific to Indian talent, I think it is very important to keep them in the loop. That is very important. If you're visualizing, for example, I'll give you an example again. I think because examples explain better. So, for example, we were looking for a project manager that could help us, simplify our operations. And even if I get right now, let's say we onboard 10 clients or 15, 20 clients per month. If I have to onboard 100 clients per month, I have a whole operations cycle set. So these are the things that we do explain a person when we are hiring them, right? And that helps a lot. If we get examples from them while I'm sharing that this is the expectation with the candidate, and get examples from them that, hey, I've helped this organization in a very similar stage, and they had also, they also had a scarcity of resources, and this is how I helped them, right? And then you get them on board, and I think keeping them in the loop is very, very important. So I think that helps a lot there. And similar, I think for other roles as well. And I just gave an example for project manager, but even for other roles, if you're able to explain them that, hey, right now we've worked on these products, now we need somebody who can help us in bringing AI into this product as well. That's why we are looking for AI engineers. So we explain them, they know the existing use case, they know, okay, what is expecting and what is going to be the before and what is going to be the after. And then they are able to, even like as hiring managers, we also have the responsibility to make sure that they are able to show their best side, and we are able to see that, right? So we have to be very clear with our questions and expectations, and be able to have them talk about their previous similar experiences. Because if we just say, okay, we are hiring an AI engineer, they of course will just share their generic experience, generic skills, tools, whatever they've used. But if we give them a situation that this is where we are and this is what we're expecting, then they are able to share more relatable examples with us as well.
I
Yeah.
see. Yeah, you relate to the situation, and it's like, oh, I've done this before, or I've not done this before, but I've done something similar before.
Yeah.
That I've worked in such an environment, and I helped them this
Yes.
way and that way. I think that's a brilliant way to know, even those skills which have been applied and which have not been applied, and the applicability of the real time basis. Indian talents overall, wherever I've spoken to, people have this perception that yes, Indian talents are very hardworking, very serious, they are very diligent, sincere, and they're good with tech and math.
Yeah.
Usually, that's the perception in the market. So, when you have been working in such global companies, do you see that perception everywhere, or is it like only in product companies the engineering team is inherently tried to be built out of an Indian location, or you have too many Indians in it? Is that the case?
I think it very much is, and we all know that it very much is, because Indians definitely, Indian talent is considered to be very critical. They have strong critical reasoning also. They have good logical reasoning as well. Those skills, I think, I think our education system, the way we learn things, the way we try things in our life, I think that makes us, it almost becomes an innate trait of Indian talent. And I think that's why, especially in most of the product companies that I've worked with, we've seen a lot of the talent, especially in the engineering teams, coming from India itself. And that is, I think that is why it is being spoken about as well for new talent who is venturing into something, in IT itself. I think this is like the low hanging fruit for them if they want to pick up a new skill, or want to change their career direction, etc. So yes, I think that very much is the case. But there is also again a spectrum. If you compromise with the skills a little, that still works. But if you compromise with the professionalism, or if you compromise with the soft skill side, I think that becomes almost unmanageable, because you cannot teach that person those things. So that also happens, that, and we've seen that. So I think, yes, Indian talent can be that there's this whole again spectrum of how they are with their communication, how they are with the professionalism. But in the skill side, if they've given something, if they've done something in the past startups, we can trust that, and they are definitely going to deliver at least, if not more, at least the similar quality stuff when they join you.
Since we are talking so much about hiring, and specifically from India, in your experience, what are the few challenges you face when you're hiring from India? What are the primary challenges a typical startup, a product company, or a SaaS product company would face when they are hiring from India?
I think challenges one I explained was making sure that the culture fit. I think that is sometimes a problem if they've not worked with international clients or international employers. Then making them teach how to communicate, making them teach how to show up in the meetings, which might not be in your time zone, helping them with their own personal task management becomes very challenging. I think that is one challenge that we see. The second one is that I think sometimes they may not be clear with the vision, and they might skip it. They might not pay
No,
attention.
but sorry to interrupt, Shreya, but this comes when you've already hired.
Mhm.
But when you are hiring,
Okay.
at that point of time, what are the challenges a startup or a product company would face when they are venturing out to hire from India?
Okay, got it. Understood. if I understood the question now. So yes, I think in terms of getting good quality applicants, that is not a challenge. You will definitely get many of them, but the challenge could be to make sure that you are shortlisting like the relevant experience. So if you're a B2B company and if you're hiring a certain type of talent, and then you see all the applicants, maybe they've worked only in B2C, and the industry is a mismatch, or maybe they do not understand how to present themselves well, and it becomes almost irrelevant. So irrelevant profiles can be a challenge in when it comes to filtering and sieving out the right talent. I think that is one challenge that we've seen. So the solution to this is very simple, that you have to be very clear with the job responsibilities, not just share generic set, but rather be very clear on the expectations, share a lot about your company, and that's where branding also helps. Branding of the employer also helps. And then I think another challenge is is a big one, which is not being able to understand what the pay scale should be, because you will get good quality talent in 5 LP also, and you'll get good quality talent in 50 LP also, right? So which one should you hire? And how much do you like, what range should you keep for yourself? And especially with companies that are shorter on financial resources, I think for them it becomes very challenging, that what is this happening, like almost similar experience, one is asking for this much and the other is asking for this much. So I think that is also a huge challenge when it comes to being on the hiring side there. And finally, I think apart from that, when you're actually going further in the process, and there are lots of no-shows. So candidates would not show up, or candidates will drop off, and it looks unprofessional on their end. That maybe if they were not interested, they shouldn't have applied in the first place, or if they are dropping out after some interviews or some stage already, then it should be at least well informed instead of just vanishing. I think that ghosting is also something that we've seen a lot in the past. So I think, yeah, these are the three major challenges.
I see. I feel somewhere this ghosting is owing to the size of the market, because one, the size of the market is huge. The talents are actually applying to multiple opportunities, and product companies usually take a lot of time while they are hiring. A service based hire is much faster, so you close a hiring request or a hiring need in 15 days max, but
Yeah.
product companies run way higher, so it is 30 days, 60 days. You take your time to actually see if the candidate is fitting. You do multiple rounds of interviews, and so it is difficult to keep the candidate also very interested into the entire process, because it's a two-way street. You have to engage them, they engage with you, and so it's a lot to process for the candidate as well. So
Agreed.
I do agree that that there are major challenges, and the entire process can be very overwhelming for somebody who is trying to do it on their own, and knowing where to put it out, how to put it out, how to assess it, and look for relevant experience. It can be quite a ball game. So when you've hired, what is your experience when you're hiring from India? How do you think companies choose to hire from India? At what point do they want to hire from India? Like these startups in US, European markets, Australia, New Zealand. What is the time frame, or when is it in their journey they feel okay, now we should hire from India, or we are ready to hire from an offshore market like India?
I think, Anvisha, there's a fact that US is more exposed to Indian talent. I think that is something that we've already seen for many years. We have seen Indians migrating to the US, and also working for the US remotely now in a hybrid structure, or remotely as well. But when it comes to other countries, for example, within the European continent, I think they still have less exposure. So they might not intentionally go for Indian talent unless they've seen some really good Indian talent working in their team itself. I think until and unless that point occurs, they may not choose consciously to go for hiring in India specifically. But yes, when it comes to the US companies, I think that ways they have the exposure, and they know that what kind of talent you can easily get from India. For example, again, in tech, especially coders, they can easily get. In cybersecurity, you can easily get. So all of these different domains that we know that are already doing great within India also, I think that becomes an example to the world, that if Indian talent can build really sophisticated tech products, it becomes an example to the world, especially to the US, who's already worked with Indian talent, and they understand how, how the hiring system is, how the hiring process is. So I think that is usually the stage for the US employers that way. But for Europeans, there has to be at least some success story for them to specifically go for Indian talent. But even if Indian talent applies, they are still open to it. They see the background, they see their previous experience, etc., and they are open to hiring too. But they are still new to this. So I think that has been my exposure to this question to answer it.
Because Indian US itself has been very close to the Indian ecosystem.
Yeah. Yep.
So, as we were talking about the Europeans and the US market has an affinity towards Indian talent due to various reasons. And, Indians, we see gradually a lot of Indian leaders into prominent positions in US specifically, into the unicorns and the big tech companies and product companies. And the shift has been gradual and it's there now. It's quite evident. And I feel somewhere Indians have proved their mettle. And NRIs specifically, or the Indian diaspora, has done the groundwork where they've managed the global perspective into seeing the strength of Indian workforce while building tech teams. And so, what are the do you have a story where a global practice and Indian innovation has led to something which has helped a company grow better? Do you have some story like that to share?
I think in the current company itself, it's a story in itself. And I'll share an example how we ended up hiring a whole different set of Indian team members. So, of course, our CEO is also of Indian origin, and he's been living in the US for many years now. And because it's all the healthcare that is very US specific, so we as Indians may not be able to relate to the problems that happen there. So it's very difficult for us to work for a US company, right? Especially healthcare company. But if you are more into a back end role or more into behind the curtains role, then it's still fine. So we did hire a lot of people that were on the development side from India itself, and then the hiring on the customer facing side was mostly done in the US because they were based there, and they understand the problem better. They are there in the geography itself in case they have to meet clients. And then a shift happens that we hired a couple of semi almost management position versus almost a tech position in India, and that person proved to be great when it comes to management and taking care of clients also all remotely, okay. And that was a huge success story, and then that led to hiring more people who are client facing but sitting and working from India. So I think that was something very unexpected. And of course, the salaries for Indian client facing team members are way lower compared to the US ones. And anyway, things happen remotely and they are able to navigate through things so well. So I think that ended up that we currently have very few customer facing people in the US and many now in India itself. So that is all happening remotely. So I think
I believe one of the success stories actually turns the entire hiring funnel around. You see that, okay, this worked, okay, we should try something else also.
yeah.
And that's also the openness of it. As you mentioned, your founder or the CEO, the owner, he himself is an NRI or is part of the Indian diaspora. Was he the reasoning behind building a team in India, or did your organization go through a process of building a team in India? Like, did you think, did you do the research? What was the process like when you wanted to build a team in India?
I think in the beginning it was not the case. We did not plan intentionally to do that because a lot of the team members are also from the other continents. Like we have from other parts of Asia, and we have from even Europe as well. And our CEO had not been in touch with the Indian talent for a very long time, so he did not know how it will work out in the whole remote style setup, and how much the salaries would be. So that he had almost lost that touch. But then for a couple of roles when Indians applied, that's when I think the story started changing, and more of Indian talent was hired intentionally after that. Then let's hire, these certain set of team members from India itself, because they're good at juggling with the time zones, and we'll make sure that they check everything, and their communication is good. So all of those checks were put in place, of course, but then an example, I think, set the further course of action.
I see, I see. So when you started the process, you saw that the applications are coming in, and then you just shifted the course to, okay, let's try it out, sort of thing.
Correct. Yeah. That's how it was. And even in the previous companies that I've worked with, like Europe, etc., I think similar story. So they were not even consciously looking for anybody specifically in a certain continent, but a lot of talent like Unity 3D developers were applying from India, and that was a surprise for them. Like, how is almost 50% of the applications coming from one country itself, when they've not even consciously put out the posting there. So that was, I think, for them also, it was almost a surprise, and it was a success story for them too.
So what are the three learnings you have got when you're hiring from India in these startup environments? What are the three learnings you've seen the startup owners have had, or as a decision maker you've had?
I think, again, having a certain vision is very important of how the role will come in, and I also feel that you don't just think about one person that is going to come into your team. Think of it like a whole team, especially if they are working currently in silos. How do you make sure that they function well as a whole group, as a whole company, having a common vision? And if you're a product company, especially, then getting disconnected from different teams can be very easy. So marketing works by itself, and developers work by themselves. So it can become like, I think, if you don't put effort, by default they will become silos. So you have to consciously put effort to make sure that they work and function together well, and that engine continues to grow. Because when they do, then it's like the results are beautiful. So you have to consciously put in efforts there. And I think, again, specifically for Indian talent, I think it is very important that you also think about the salaries in advance, because you might end up having different, completely different backgrounds, different salaries, and the whole, I think, the range is very overwhelming. So just make sure that you decide a range in advance itself. To do some research before you put out the job posting. Try to see what kind of parameters you're looking for, and then based on that, what your budget is going to be. So of course, if you're hiring from the US itself, you'll find that it's going to be cheaper to hire Indian talent. But then how do you still pay them fairly? I think that is very important. It may not be just compensation, it can be other things as well. It could be ESOPs, it could be other items. But I think, thinking of it before even starting the hiring process is very, very important. So these are, I think, some learnings that we've got in all of these processes.
I think research on salary benchmarking is very important, because if you do not know the market, because it's not just India, anywhere in the world, if you do not know the salary benchmarking of that country,
Yeah.
the salaries itself are very skewed.
Hmm.
Because not only just experience, there is no benchmarking as to,
Yeah.
okay, one talent you get to pay so and so amount, and another talent might cost you way more, because their experiences in other environments is way greater. So I think the entire ecosystem is skewed that way.
I agree. I think, but Anvesha, I'll disagree on some part of what you said. That yes, it is going to be skewed, but I think the Indian salaries have a very wide range. So when it comes to the US salaries, the range is not very wide. Europe, the range is not very wide. Especially if you are talking about a certain country, you will know that, okay, if 4 years of experience, it's going to be 40,000 to 60,000 euros a year. But then when it comes to India, it can be like 4,000 euros a year, it can be 400,000 euros a year. That I think range is so wide that as hiring managers, it becomes almost overwhelming to see that people competing with for a job with their salaries. They might be keeping it very low, or they might be good talent and raising it really high. So what do you go for? I think that becomes a very difficult choice to make.
I think somewhere the knowledge of an NRI also helps here, because there are tier towns, there are metros, there are first tier towns, there are three tier towns, and then there are alums where you have the Ivy Leagues of India. So whenever you are coming out of those particular institutes, or you are hailing from particular startup environments, specifically from Bangalore or Hyderabad, such locations, or Bombay for that matter, the cost of living is higher, and hence you end up with an inflated salary of some sort. So I think that also does help if an Indian hiring manager is in the process.
Yep.
They know the differentiation between the salaries, and they understand why a particular talent from a particular location is charging you higher because of the exposure, the cost of living, and all of that. But moving away from that also, I feel somewhere recently we've seen these 2 tier 3 tier town talents, they are actually doing wonders. I've seen such great success cases when I talk to a lot of NRIs, and I speak to a lot of NRIs and decision makers, and I've seen them talk about these tier 2 town talent with a lot of pride. They say that a person from maybe Bareilly or Nagpur is doing so well, and they have good understanding of what we want, they have a good understanding of what the company culture is like, and they understand where their work lies or what it entails. So that's a growth in Indian talent that has happened recently. And it is, what do you think, how has these transition or transformation happened? What do you think is needs that credit, that these small town talents are also understanding a global culture?
I myself am also from a tier two city, so I can totally relate. And I think people from even from my own city are doing wonders. I think that also comes if we talk about a little bit more context about how their experiences and life has been. So there is lesser competition, right? There's lesser feeling of survive and thrive thing. I think that is lesser, and you don't just work for the sake of earning. It is beyond that, especially in tier 2 cities. So maybe in Delhi, Bangalore, etc., of course you need money on a monthly basis. You need to maybe you need to climb that ladder also, and you get into that environment where it becomes very competitive. But when it comes to tier 2 cities, I think people are very focused on their skills. People are very focused on delivering what they are hired for. So hiring is one part, but then performing at the job is another one, right? So I think they focus on a lot on that too. They appreciate the opportunities that they get. Otherwise they wouldn't have got those if not in a tier 1 city, right? So if they were not, this whole setup would have not been possible. Then they might have not got this opportunity, and they might not even have experienced it. So they appreciate what they get, and it is for them also a thing of pride that they sitting within a tier 2 city, they achieved it, and if they've got it, they will want to give more than what they are expected to give. So I think that becomes a whole story of the tier 2 talent in India.
So the underdogs do win at the end. Since we were talking about managing previously, and then we shifted to the hiring funnel, what are the three things you feel is absolutely essential, or in managing Indian remote talent, or there are the three factors that you need to account for when you're managing Indian talent, especially remote talent?
I think having the infrastructure in place is very important, the remote friendly infrastructure. And if you're a remote first company, especially, I think having all of those practices, best practices in place, having that infrastructure in place is very important. And then second, it's adoption. So even if it is a hybrid style company, even if you have people who are sitting in the office and then also working remotely, how do you make sure that everybody is equally involved, everybody is equally contributing also, and the people who are not coming to the office, they are not less seen, or they are not ignored. So I think those are two of the points. And then finally the third one is, I think, appreciating the work that is going in remote. It is sometimes by default you may not appreciate people when they achieve things. In office you see people in front of you, you talk about the projects that they're doing, etc. But maybe when you get outside of that system, then it becomes difficult, that you only catch up on meetings, you only catch up when you have something something really important to discuss, or you have an agenda. But I think appreciating any successes, anything that they've been a part of, and it should be in like an all hands setup in front of other colleagues, their colleagues as well. I think that is very important. So these are my learnings. I think people can add more, but this is what I've seen so far.
I see. It's wonderful to hear that. So, since you've worked in such diverse countries and diverse backgrounds, so as a decision maker, what advice would you give to startup founders on hiring strategically? And while doing so, ensuring that they scale from ideation to impact smoothly?
I think in one like I've seen some companies where they have this flat hierarchy structure. I think treating people as experts is very important, instead of just making that huge tree or root like structure. Instead of that, consider, for example, if you hire a product designer or if you hire a QA engineer, trust that person with that certain skill and hire also with that trust, right? And I think that has to it has to be ongoing, not just like before hiring but also after hiring. So if you are hiring them with trust that they will take care of this certain thing, just treat them as experts, and that team of experts will handle something. So you have to, like, I think you have to take off some things from your shoulders also. So especially if you've seen that 0 to 1 journey and then you are going from the 1 to 100 journey, you might want to still micromanage and see, have the visibility into things. But it is very important to, at after a certain stage, let that go. And if you're hiring good talent, at least hand it off to them. Ask them to, of course, give you weekly, quarterly, whatever updates, but then, yeah, leave it to them. That is very important. Otherwise, you will not be able to scale. And I think having a relevant team structure that supports this is also very important. So you can call it flat hierarchy. It's also called holacracy in, I think, in a certain manner, if you're actually practicing the whole thing. I think that is one takeaway that I would share. And then the second is, also, for example, 0 to 1, we're talking about that. So once a certain section of your product has achieved that, then hand it off and then focus on the other project or product. Then maybe micromanage that till it goes from 0 to 1, and then again hand it off when it's in the 1 to 100 stage. So I think it is important to go step by step and have phases for each certain micro project, mini project, and be able to visualize your company in that way. As CEOs or as owners or as leaders, sometimes we forget that vision, and for us, everything is like the whole company, and we're unable to create projects out of that. I think it's important to understand. For example, if I'm currently building one product and then I'm launching a new feature, that can be a separate project which I focus on maybe for 1 month. I let go of the previous thing because now it's in good hands, and then once this new feature is built, then I hand it off and let the team know that this is how you have to make it successful. I want to see these results, and be very clear with what you're expecting. I think that is very important. So if you start looking at everything all the time, then you cannot scale.
Yeah, it can become very messy, compartmentalizing and having phases for everything. Like you said, it's very important to know the phase. It has come to fruition. It's time to hand it over, let others take care of it, where I venture out into something else altogether. Very true, very true. I completely agree to this, because even while managing your work, that also holds true. That's how you grow. In your experience, what are the common pitfalls or errors a startup makes or startup faces when hiring from India? How can they be avoided? Is there a way of going around it? Is there a way of doing it a little better so that you do not make those mistakes?
I think the side that I told about employees, candidates ghosting, I think that applies to employers as well. You shouldn't be ghosting people when you are in the middle of, let's say, you've maybe interviewed them, or maybe the position got filled, and maybe the other person is expecting an interview, the next steps, etc. I think it is very important that you maintain that professionalism from your end as well. So that's super super important. And then I think being very very clear, so not being vague about the job responsibilities, not being maybe unclear about the expectations. And then finally, one more mistake that I find, I think that I've not covered so far, is also to make sure that when a certain team has been formed, and when you are already bringing in that new person into the team, that structure has to also have a certain set of KPIs. and that can be a part of the hiring process itself, and that is something that's missing at times. So when you're hiring, you and try to understand that person as a team member, as an individual person, even if they are going to be working within a team. So instead of that, make sure that you also visualize the whole team, how they will work and how that person is going to fit in, and as a team what they're going to deliver. So communicating that ahead of time, not after hiring them but before hiring them, is also very important.
Very true, very true. That's some wonderful insight that you've shared, Shreya. It is lovely the way you've talked about the scaling and the startup and the challenges and how the NRIs have been building teams and your extensive experience. It was lovely talking to you. That brings us to the end of this session. If you would like to share something else, we are all yours.
I think apart from this, just as employers, we just need to make sure that we are opening doors for the Indian talent, definitely, and making sure that we have certain processes in place to have all of that set. So when it comes to creating a job description, making sure it's out on the right channels, and it may not be like you're throwing it everywhere, keeping it exclusive at times as well, making sure that a certain type of talent applies there. So making sure that sometimes the channels can literally be very specific and niche Slack groups also. Well, it may not be just LinkedIn and Naukri.com and others, or just your website. So making sure that you, for example, I want to hire a Flutter developer, then I may go to a Flutter Slack community which is full of really talented Flutter developers and post that job opening there. I think those we should keep in mind as well. So just make sure that we have a full process, we have all doors open, and we are welcoming the Indian talent in a great way, and also making sure that they carry a nice experience for their future companies as well.
So it was lovely speaking to Shreya. This has been a wonderful session. I hope this kind of knowledge or information helps the startup owners, the product owners, as well as SaaS entrepreneurs to do justice to their hiring process. Thank you so much.